Being a PUBG Xbox player since day one and playing over 1,000 hours, I've discovered quite a few tips and tricks along the way to help me out and make me more successful in the game. Now, I've made a number of videos going over tips and tricks on this channel for PUBG on console, about 80 tips and tricks in total in those videos, and so with any game, after you've played it for so long, you've discovered just about everything there is. But there's always some small details to the game that you may have missed, and quite frankly, not even thought about in the past. So today I thought I'd share with you 11 more small tips to add to your game to make you a better PUBG player. Now before we get started, make sure to give the video a like if you find it useful at all, and subscribe to stay up to date on everything that I publish. I'd also like to add a bit of a disclaimer. I'm not a pro PUBG player and I'll never claim to be. I play the game and cover it here on YouTube because I love it and it's one of my favorite games of all time, especially to play with friends. And while I think I am a very competent PUBG player, I am not one of the best out there for sure. I just like to share my thoughts and share some things that help me out along the way, just in case others will find it useful as well. So just keep that in mind before you write some hate comment in the comment section below. And like I said, I have 11 tips here for you. They are not in order. I'm going to have them numbered just for consistency's sake, but they are not prioritized or ranked by importance in any way. So let's start it off with number 1. While the blue is closing, the blue bar above your minimap shows if you're in the circle or not. So picture this situation and let me know if this is a common occurrence for you. It's a very small circle, you don't know if you're quite in on this rock or on this tree, and so you have to open up your map, zoom really far in just to see if your player icon is in the next circle. Well, you no longer have to do that because if you just look at the blue bar above the minimap while you're playing, you can see if you're safe inside the next zone or not. If you are outside the next safe zone and will get damage from the blue, it will be bright blue on that blue bar, and if you are safely inside, even just a little bit, it will dim out. I didn't realize this, I didn't see this up until about a month ago, and then once I realized, it makes my game a lot easier just finding out if I'm just in on this tree, or like I said, just in on this rock. I just don't have to zoom in on the minimap anymore, wasting time in the menu, which can get you killed. This is extremely useful if you're trying to hold up in a building for the next zone, or if you're navigating around the zone and you know that you can always be in if you see that that blue bar is dimmed out. Now number 2 is pretty obvious, but it's something that has gotten me killed recently that I just keep forgetting to do, and that's make sure to check which healing item you have set on the D-pad, so when you hold down the D-pad to auto heal, you have what you want selected. And furthermore, you probably want to have your first aid selected. If you're in a gunfight and you escape behind cover, instead of opening up your inventory system and then selecting the healing that you want, you can usually just hold down on D-pad, and then if you have a first aid or a med kit, it will typically use your strongest healing item possible. But say earlier on in the match you used some bandages by holding down on the D-pad, that bandage selection will remain until you use the D-pad pressed down enough times to select something different. And this has got me killed a couple times on Karakin recently, where I went to use a first aid because I knew I had 3 first aids, and lo and behold I used bandages earlier, which means I was automatically going to be using bandages by default since I did it before and I never bothered to switch it. So instead of getting to 75 health, I barely increased my health at all. A guy came around the corner and killed me. And like I said, to avoid this, simply make sure that you have the right healing item selected before you get into an encounter. So if you know you have bandages before, make sure to just push down on the D-pad, check what you have automatically selected, and if that's not a first aid or something that you want, change it. Number 3 is one of my favorite tips that I've recently been doing, and it wasn't really possible before they made some changes to the way the loot is organized in player boxes. Quickly loot a box by smashing X repeatedly to get all the healing, so you're not sitting there as a big target in an open field looting forever. Now this doesn't always apply, obviously. You may need to get more than just the healing items off a player death box. But mid to late game, you likely have as much ammo as you need, you have all your attachments, and all you really need is some extra boosts or extra first aids. But you just killed a guy in the middle of an open field, and you know if you go out there for 5 or 10 seconds just to look through that player death box, you're going to get sniped or you're going to get lit up. To avoid this, quickly walk over to the box, bring up your inventory screen, and just press X as many times as possible, as fast as possible, and you will get all the healing items you can possibly fit in your bag within 1 or 2 seconds. And like I said, not only is this extremely efficient, but it will decrease the chances of you getting sniped while standing there in the middle of an open field or completely exposed, looting a dead body. And tip number 4 was also something that was added recently, auto reload. So if you have auto reload set on your settings, if you end up running out of bullets and you press the trigger again to fire, it will reload your gun for you. And this is great because sometimes holding down X to reload doesn't register, and so you have to do it all over again, and then reloading your weapon takes 4 or 5 seconds just to get it to start, when if you just push the trigger it would take a split second and your player automatically reloads their weapon. And you can see it's much faster when you're picking up a weapon in a hot drop. You pick up the weapon and ammo and you press trigger to reload. You do it much faster than if you hold X to do so. And we all know in PUBG, 1 or 2 seconds can mean life or death. Just make sure that you have the right gun out when you're trying to push the trigger to reload, or you will misfire and give away your position, and everyone in your team will hate you. Number 5, you can open doors while priming a grenade or throwing something. So if somebody's holed up in a building next to you and they've closed the door, but you want to throw a frag in there or you want to throw a Molotov cocktail, in order to avoid opening the door and having them close it again, or opening the door and exposing yourself when you go to throw the grenade, what you can do is prime the grenade, get ready to throw it, and then walk over to the door and press X and then throw the grenade at the same time, and you'll be sure to throw that in there without exposing yourself too much. So like I said, a very useful tip that can give you the edge over your opposition. Number 6, utilize drive-bys. Now this is really only a problem in solos, because if you're playing in duos or squads, if you're driving, your teammates can shoot and try and take down enemies while you're driving around, but in solos, you're obviously all alone. And while you're driving around, you might find an enemy player that you can shoot at, but you can't drive and shoot at the exact same time. However, with the auto drive feature, you can put yourself in auto drive, quickly switch seats, and then start firing with any weapon that you have. If you don't know how to enable auto driving, while you're in a vehicle, hold down the right trigger to keep accelerating, and then click in the right stick, and then it's like you're on cruise control. Now when you switch seats, it will begin to slow down, but it will keep driving for a time, and the car will remain stable, giving you the perfect opportunity to lean out the window and perform that highlight reel play. Number 7 also has to deal with the auto drive feature, and that's healing in cars. And again, this is a solo only problem, because if you have a buddy that's driving with you, you can switch seats and let them drive, and then you can begin to heal. But say you have a long way to go until blue and you're driving your vehicle, but you really need to heal, instead of stopping the vehicle and then getting out and healing, or just coming to a complete stop and healing, which does indeed waste time, what you can do is set the vehicle to auto drive and then jump in the next seat and start healing. Number 8, always be boosted. If you have a bunch of boosts, especially late game, you want to make sure that you use them. Because as the old saying goes, you don't use it, you lose it. But the main reason you always want to have boosts enabled, if it's possible, is to always have that potential active healing going on. If you get in a fight, or if you're running to blue, having some active boosts will help you regain your health faster, and you won't have to spend time healing or applying those boosts if you have limited cover. It's also extremely useful in those very close gunfights where one shot makes all the difference. I don't know how many times I've survived a fight with 5 or 1 or 0.01 HP, and I ended up doing that because I had boosts ticking that whole time. So like I said, if possible, if you have the boosts available to you and it's not a terrible time to use them, make sure boosts are always enabled. That way you have that advantage going into every single fight. Number 9, don't always smoke a downed teammate. And this may seem strange, but it's a way to hide in plain sight. If you just finish an engagement and you killed the other team and you need to heal your teammate because he got downed in the process, and you really don't think you're too exposed from any angle, and you don't think people are shooting you at that time, maybe it's best not to throw a smoke grenade. There is such a thing as hiding in plain sight, and throwing a smoke grenade just calls out to everyone in the area, hey look, we're reviving each other. One perfectly timed nade later and your whole match is completely ruined. But if you waited and you actually just picked up your buddy without throwing the smoke, you might get away with it and remain hidden that entire time. Obviously this is a tip that's circumstantial. It's absolutely imperative to smoke your teammate when they're down if you're getting shot at or if there's a lot of people looking your direction, but there are times when it's beneficial not to throw that smoke grenade. Instead, you could save it for later and use it for tip number 10. Use smokes as decoys. And you can use these in a number of ways. You can throw them at an enemy that's behind cover to make them think that you're throwing a frag grenade, or you can simply just throw smokes to the right and move to the left. Enemy teams will look towards the smoke to see if players are coming out of that area, and you can be flanking from the other side and take them down. This won't always work because they also might be thinking the same thing, and they might think that that's just a decoy smoke. Or they might be able to see you throwing a smoke grenade instead of a frag, but it doesn't hurt to try, especially if you have those in late game situations. And finally, number 11, I think this tip has made my tips list a couple times in previous videos, but please, stop thirsting me for the love of God, you knobs. I'll be real with you, there's a lot of times that thirsting makes a lot of sense. You knock somebody super far away and they're crawling to safety so they can get revived by their teammates. Of course, try and take that down player out as soon as possible. You're hot dropping and you just want the kill for your mission, fine, go for it. But if you land in a compound with one other team and they've knocked your teammate and you end up knocking one of theirs, why would you just instantly finish that player that you knocked instead of going for that last teammate that's alive so you can possibly go over and save your teammate? I can completely understand that if your teammate gets knocked and finished, as soon as you knock one of their players, you go for the same thing and you teach them a lesson about thirsting. What goes around comes around. But it makes no sense that if the precedent is set, okay, one of my teammates is knocked, he hasn't got thirsted yet, they left him completely alone. If I knock one of their players, I'm not going to thirst them. It's one, a sign of respect, and it's a smart play because it brings that team towards you, and they're going to be taking risks that they wouldn't necessarily do just to make sure that their teammate doesn't die. They will expose themselves and generally make worse decisions when they're rushing towards their teammate to save them, giving you the perfect opportunity to save the day and be the hero. Instead, you're being a little head, and you never let go of the trigger and you just want to get your first kill ever on PUBG. Well done. In all seriousness, it's a lot harder than it seems to not just instantly thirst a player. I know I've done it before, and I've made some terrible decisions like that, which have gotten me and my team killed, instead of giving us a chance to win that fight and move on and win the game. Okay, that last tip got kind of heated there because that's a very sour point for me, especially in this game. It seems to happen all the time, and it just makes me so frustrated when we leave their enemy player down for 30 seconds to a minute, and then they knock one of ours and just instantly finish them. Oh, it just makes me more mad than anything in this game. Not even crashing makes me as mad as something like that. But those were 11 small tips to help improve your game. If you follow some of these things, they can not only save you some time while you're playing, but they could mean the difference between life and death or winning that chicken dinner. But like I said before, I hope you guys found these useful. If you did, definitely give it a like and subscribe to stay up to date on everything that I publish. And if you haven't checked out all the other tips and tricks videos that I've made before, I have a link to the playlist in the description below. Feel free to check those out. You can also follow me on Twitter at YTBoris15. But with all that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I hope these tips helped. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.